Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another edition, a rollicking edition of What's Good with John and Joyce. I'm John Cadillac Seville from iHeartRadio and John Seville Entertainment with my co-host
Joyce Logan. Are we rollicking?
We are rollicking. We are rollicking. You know, I don't know why I came up with that, but
I like that.
you like that?
Yeah.
You like that? I'd like to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors. Woodwinds Wedding and Special Events Venue and Silvio Sauces, thewoodwinds.com. Ascend Bank. They don't just see your accounts, they see your vision and ambitions. Ascend.bank. Moonshots, a vegan-based company that delivers the highest quality organic juices, coffee, bowls, and so much more. Drinkmoonshots.com. And To Your Health, nutrition and health coaching, creating a lifestyle tailored just for you. ToYourHealth360.com. We're deeply grateful to all of our sponsors for their support and for partnering with us to uplift and enrich the lives of our listeners and viewers. But speaking of rollicking, we have an amazing gentleman who rollicked all the way down from his abode to get to our studios here in Brantford, Connecticut. A gentleman I had the pleasure of meeting, several years ago. He's written some books. He's been an attorney. He's just been an absolute inspiration to so many. And on Facebook, he has this column called the Friday Ficks that I look forward to every single Friday, his wisdom that he imparts. But he's a real gentleman and just become a really good friend. And welcome to our studios here in Brantford, Connecticut, Carl Ficks.
Yes, I'm so happy to meet you.
It's a pleasure.
And is your article, is it on Facebook also?
It's on Facebook and it's on LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's every Friday. And this is what I call season 6. So this is my 6th year. And I've posted continuously every Friday.
Wow, the Friday Fix.
The Friday Fix.
Oh, what a
Little
perfect name.
riff on my last name.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, I'm just really, I've always been intrigued and really just inspired by your career, where you've come back in the day. I love the way you talk about your family. I love the way you revere your dad. That's really appealed to me in so many ways. Tell us a little bit about you, Carl.
Sure. I grew up in central Connecticut in Berlin. And I went to college in Providence, and I decided at that time to go to law school. It was a bit of a default career. I was an engineering major for 2 months. And,
For 2 months?
2 months.
There's got to be a story behind that.
There is. I flailed and failed in calculus. Yes. It was a rollicking failure.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Rollicking flavor.
Was it the math? Was it the...
It was pretty much everything. It just was. It was a bad situation. So went to law school, returned to Connecticut, and practiced for more than 30 years. And I enjoyed the profession tremendously. I met some fantastic people, had wonderful clients. But then I pivoted in 2021 for many reasons. One of them was I did not think that I was fully in service to the community and others. I did a lot of corporate law, which is basically moving money from one side of the ledger to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And while it was satisfying, at some point it became unsatisfying. So I decided to make that pivot. Actually, it's described in that book, The Difference, on my thought process. And
Which I highly recommend, The Difference, please.
and how my pivot came about in 2021. So we're coming up on 5 years.
Wow. And you've had a satisfying run since then, right? I mean, has it been something that you've really, looking back, saying, wow, I did the right thing?
No regrets.
No regrets at all?
I'm not a rear view mirror guy. I have very few, if any, regrets. And I don't regret leaving the practice of law. Aside from one major thing, and that's the IT department at my old law firm, because now I have to figure everything out myself. And
Yeah.
it's
That
brutal.
makes sense.
Same here. I'm not the
Yes.
most technical person in the
No.
world at all.
Having a skilled IT department on speed dial
Right.
is quite the luxury
Yeah.
that I no longer have.
Now, what do you mainly focus on nowadays? You're talking about being a service to other people. You've been quite a consultant, a coach in so many ways to so many.
I do a lot of leadership training and rising executives that I help one-on-one, but I also do one-to-many. It could be middle management.
One-to-many.
One-to-many. Focusing a lot on emotional intelligence, which is something I wish I knew more about back in the younger days.
Me too.
But it's a fascinating topic, and we're sorely lacking in it. And I'm trying to do what I can to raise awareness about that.
Yep.
So
You're right, Joyce. Go ahead.
You know, I'm just wondering when you meet with someone, let's say the head of a company, and they need your guidance with something, do you work on emotional intelligence with them?
Yes, and that's been a training session that I've done with a number of companies where between 6 and 10, it could be C-suite executives or it could be middle management,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll have it's fairly elastic. I can do a 2-hour training session, a 4-hour. I can elongate it to 6 hours, and you take a really deep dive in the emotional intelligence. I mean, a recent study shows that only 36% of us are able to understand or recognize our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And we all act in response to those. And if you can't recognize them, then things can get out of control.
So you're telling them, explaining like how to recognize it within yourself and others that you're having a meeting with.
Right.
Let's
It's
say.
basically 4 principles: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So the self-awareness and the social awareness are basically how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then self-management and relationship management is how you react to the way you feel. So you can tease those things out and have really robust and wonderful training sessions and get people talking. And it's very rewarding.
That's important to get people talking. Is that outlined in the book, The Difference?
No, that is not.
Okay.
The emotional intelligence is something that I've been working on after
Oh,
the
okay.
book The Difference dropped.
Yes, because Carl has 2 books sitting here. So
But we got
That's right.
together for a business summit that Carl put together a couple of years ago over in Avon, Connecticut. And it was just great. A bunch of philanthropists, business people getting together
nice.
and just sharing breakfast and lunch together, taking a walk up a mountain out in the beautiful nature of Avon, Connecticut. And we really developed friendships about that and just would have free conversations and just share wisdom with each other and learn from each other. And I really, really liked that and appreciated that so much.
Well, it was wonderful to have you. And that was a wonderful day. I've done others since. The outcomes and I don't do it for the feedback. I do it just to make a difference in somebody's life, excuse me. And it's just a wonderful experience. We'll start, for instance, Joyce. I'll say to everybody, just as an icebreaker of sorts, write down every emotion you felt in the last 24 hours.
Wow.
And people kind of look at me cross-eyed, but then
Yeah.
they do. And then we talk about it. And if you took an inventory of every emotion that you had in the last 24 hours, it would be quite the roller coaster.
Yes. Yes.
Quite the roller coaster. I remember one training session, nobody wanted to go first. So I said, I'll go first. I said, I felt nervous in the last 24 hours. And they looked quizzically at me and said, why? And I said, well, I put my 18-year-old daughter on a flight today with Delta Airlines. So they now have care, custody, and control of her. And I hope they get her to Atlanta safely. And that made me nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a for instance.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, you were talking about emotional intelligence, which I think is so important nowadays because most of us make decisions based on emotion and not pragmatism. And that's what gets us into so much trouble. And most of us react rather than respond.
So you have that knee-jerk reaction to
Exactly.
something.
That also
Yeah.
gets us in trouble as well.
That's correct.
So we need to have, like a spiritual, mental, physical discipline, all of that stuff. But the emotional intelligence, I think, is so key.
And you have to have that immediately under control. You have
Right.
to, so the more you work on it.
Right. And most of
then-
us just kind of react right away without thinking. And that can really get you in trouble, especially in not just your personal life, but in business.
Very much so. And in the practice of law, I was, that can be an emotional profession.
Yeah.
Shall we
No,
say?
sure.
Oh, yes.
And when I would mentor young lawyers, I would say, if you want to prepare an email with some vitriol, draft it, park it, and come back to it. Because you may have to read that email in front of a judge. And if you wouldn't read what you're about to write to your mother, then don't write it.
That is such a good point because think
I
about
love that.
the times you've texted people, right, Joyce? And have you ever
Yes.
done that? Sent a text and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Wait before you send it, especially if
learned
it's a kind of a challenging one, and wait 24 hours. Read it again and you'll probably decide not to send it,
Correct.
right? In most cases.
Right. And there's so many other things lost in a text. There's inflection, there's
Yes.
tone,
Yes.
there's just humaneness, excuse me. So texting that's a slippery slope.
That's dangerous because the thing is, you don't know where that person's emotion is on the other side at the time. You know, they could be in a very down state, or they just had a fight with their wife or their kids, and they can respond to it differently than if they were in a different state, a happier state. So that's why I've learned a long time ago, I
Voice.
leave
You do the
voice
voice,
text
yes.
with everybody because they can hear the
They can
inflection
hear
of
it,
my
right.
voice and know that I'm saying it in the right way.
Yes.
Right. And to your point, you absolutely have no idea what other people have on their plates. And everybody
Yes.
has something on their respective plate.
I sure do.
Period, full stop. We've all got crosses to bear and burdens. Many of them cannot be seen to the naked eye. So you need to be mindful about drawing down on people because
Yes.
of
We're
what
all
they may be.
carrying something.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
If you peel back the layers and everybody's battling something, we say all the time, be kind to everybody you know because everybody is battling something. You wake up every single day and they may look like they have it all on the outside, house, car, family, the picket fence, but every one of us is battling something.
If you could just pause and take that deep breath, relax, and think about that before you speak. And you can do that in nanoseconds once you keep doing that.
Right. And
Yeah.
checking in with people. How are you
Yes.
doing?
Yes. You're very
Really,
good at
how
that.
are you
Yes.
doing? And it's not box checking. You're genuinely interested.
Yes.
Last week's Friday Fix, I got a comment from a friend, and it wasn't ominous, but she said, I'm paraphrasing, this landed for me today because I've been going through a few things. That's all. It was rather oblique. I have her cell number. I texted her. Are you okay? Can I help you? I just wanted to make sure she was okay based on that public Facebook comment.
See, that would I feel weepy just hearing you say
Yes.
that because that could mean so much to someone.
You know how much it
Just
means to
to-
somebody if you just reach out to them and say, I was just thinking about you.
Yeah.
And how that can make somebody's day, because most of us are so engrossed in our own lives. And I've learned a long time ago, Carl, if you're having a really tough day, reach out to somebody else and help them, and you'll forget about yourself. We're just too self-absorbed in so many ways. And I'm guilty of that at times.
Yeah.
But we got to get out of our own way, realize that we're all here for each other.
Yeah, it's your comment is interesting. In the difference, I go into a bit. My wife had 4 brothers, one of whom in 2014 disappeared in the state of Arizona. To date, has never been found. Now, his father, my father-in-law, excuse me, was a rather prominent figure in the construction industry. And when they were still looking for my brother-in-law, Paul, so many people came up to me and said, I want to talk to Angelo, my father-in-law, but I don't know what to say. And I would say to them, just reach out and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. That's it. You don't have to ask him a question. It doesn't have to be heavy. Just let him know you, whoever you are thinking about him. And that is worth its weight in gold. So that was my very simple advice many, many years ago.
It's powerful.
Yeah, it is. Now, going back to your law practice, because every single lawyer has stories. What was like the most challenging part of it, or do you have any kind of anecdotal story that's kind of like humorous or?
Oh, I have a lot of humorous.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. But one thing that the practice of law, a lot of people watch legal shows on
Oh,
TV
sure.
where everything happens in 59 minutes.
Doesn't
That's
work
not
that
the
way.
case. I once litigated a case that took 8 years.
8 years.
Whoa.
Wow.
The reason I raise that is the litigation can be like an endurance sport, and I love endurance.
You're
events.
a biker.
I just love, and so it kind of fit. But there were humorous events. I would take a deposition. My standard question is, what did you do to prepare for today's deposition? They'd say, oh, I read this, I reviewed this, I spoke to my lawyer. I had one guy who said, I brushed my teeth. And I thought, okay, perfect. All right. Another standard question was, where were you born? We'll kind of get some background. And he says, a woman's prison in Texas.
Wow.
So I remain emotionless. He said, you didn't see that one coming, did you? I said, no, I did not.
Wow.
So times like that, you know, and even in court, like I was in Brooklyn once in federal court. Now, federal judges, as we all know, are appointed for life. So they can do pretty much what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to move this case out of Brooklyn and get it into Connecticut. And the judge takes the bench and he says, all right, who's Attorney Ficks? I said, that's me, Your Honor. He said, what's your problem with Brooklyn? And I thought, here we go. I said, I have no problem with Brooklyn, Your Honor. He said, well, apparently you do. You want to take this case from me and move it to Connecticut.
Right.
I said, that's correct. He said, tell me one good thing about Brooklyn. When you come to Brooklyn, what's a good thing about Brooklyn? And I said, I get to read the late city final of the New York Post. And he said, well, that's reason enough to keep the case here. Motion denied. Like that.
Right.
Wow.
I left court and the client called. How did it go? Well, it was fun, but I lost.
Right.
I lost the motion. So there were times like that where you would just get a lot of laughs. There were also very somber or serious times. And I'll give you, for instance, when I was a very young lawyer, I defended a municipality after a garbage truck had rolled over 2 women, killing one of them. The other woman, her leg was traumatically amputated on site. And I will never forget this deposition for as long as I live. She was giving a deposition and the lawyer said, do you remember what you said at the scene? She said, absolutely. And, well, what did you say? Well, the flight surgeon or the flight nurse was holding my head. And the flight nurse says, everything will be okay. And I said, no, it won't. My leg is over there.
Oh.
And I'll never forget that. The clarity of thought that woman had.
Yeah.
And
To say that.
to say that, the clarity of thought at that critical time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a big part of that case getting settled. Because this woman would have been fantastic in front of a jury.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have dozens of those anecdotes from 30 years plus of practice. It's a very interesting and a rewarding career.
So you think you made a difference?
I'd like to think so. And I've said this on other podcasts and in training sessions. You know, I dealt with a lot of multi-million-dollar stuff, but I also helped other folks. There was a friend of mine who got into a dust-up over the closing of his house. And I stepped in and we resolved it. He wrote me a note, he and his wife, and he said, Carl, thank you for believing in us. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're and I bet you saved it.
Not correct. Not a lot of words.
Yeah.
Thank you for believing in us
Yeah.
because nobody before did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That was
very, very
profound.
rewarding.
It really was.
Yeah.
So can you tell me, I want to talk to you about forgiveness because you brought that up and forgiveness has really changed my life. So can you share something about how that related to your life? Like whether it was when, I don't know, I almost want to say, was there a pivotal moment in your life, whether when you left being an attorney to go on to do something else? Did forgiveness have something to do with that?
No, forgiveness, and I write about that in the Wisdom Collection.
Is that available
okay.
now?
That is.
The Wisdom?
The Wisdom Collection.
Okay.
That is another anthology.
I'm going to grab that.
I've got a chapter in there, and it's called, the chapter's Live to Forgive. And another one of my brother-in-laws was involved in the corruption scandal involving Governor Rowland 20 plus years ago.
Oh, I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
So without giving away everything that's in that book, suffice it to say that I was a little salty about what went down and how he seemingly had everything and squandered it. And I was driving to federal court in New Haven to sit through his sentencing after he had pled guilty. And despite my personal feelings, I asked my brother-in-law, what could I do to help him? And at the time, there was a 91-year-old rabbi in New Britain who was a rock star. And he said, "Would you give the rabbi a ride to court?" I said, "Sure." So my wife and I picked up the rabbi. And in that plus or minus 1 hour journey, he turned me around, I did a 180 listening to him. He said multiple times, he, meaning my brother-in-law, needs our forgiveness and needs our love. And the rabbi survived the night of broken glass in 1938. He was a survivor. And he said he was a survivor, and because he survived, he was put on this earth to be God's helper. And he basically said, if you are dismissive and non-forgiving, you then think less of people, that you are above them and they are beneath you, but everybody is the same. So he opted to live a life of embracing anyone and everyone, despite whatever flaws they may have. So in the course of that ride, I thought, well, if this guy survived what the Nazis did to him and he forgave them, then I could, in fact, forgive my brother-in-law, which I did in the course of that ride. And then that set up us going forward, and my wife and our 2 daughters would visit him in prison on Saturdays, and that led to a more robust relationship. And I quote Mandela in that book, resentment is like drinking poison and think it's going to impact the other guy.
Yes. Wasn't that so liberating for you when you forgave?
Right. So I didn't, the rabbi helped me not drink the poison, basically.
Yes.
So that is what my chapter in the Wisdom Collection is about.
Good.
It's about forgiveness.
I can't
And
wait to read that.
believe me, when I got in that car and picked up the rabbi, I was not in a forgiving mood.
Oh, you needed that rabbi.
I needed it.
Yes.
And he went on to live to 103.
Really?
Yeah.
That's because he forgave everybody, maybe. Maybe that's just how we live longer and better.
He preached for or at the Connecticut Department of Veteran Affairs. And I quote an official with that department who said, the rabbi would reach in and squeeze your heart. That's what he did.
Wow. What a visual, huh?
Yeah.
Squeeze your heart.
I mean, this guy was remarkable. And, you know, I point out in the chapter that I was in the presence, my wife and I, of greatness, not the Hollywood glitterati and the rest of that. I'm talking Oscar Schindler and Martin Luther King. I mean, this rabbi was a spectacular man. And he changed things for me.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, Carl, I've become a lot more forgiving as my faith has deepened, because I think about all the stupid stuff I do every day, and God forgives me. Each and every day. He never turns his back on me.
Right.
And some people they hold this unforgiveness for years. For years.
And it manifests in the body. It eats the inside.
I think I was one of them. And then when I let go, you know, it was life. I can't even put into words, you know, what I felt like and how it affected the other person. And I didn't even have to tell them. I didn't even have to say, I forgive you. They just showed up and everything just worked out. And probably like with you.
Yeah, it was a clarifying moment. It really was. But I go into a little more detail about it. But that's the sum and substance that I had the good fortune. I was blessed to spend time with this incredible man.
Wow. So. Now tell us about, you are really, really big into fitness, as well as Joyce and I are, and you love the bike.
I do. So pulling on the emotional intelligence thread, you've got the self-awareness and self-management. I'm firmly in the camp of, if you can't manage yourself, you can't manage others. And part of that self-management, I think, is just maintaining your mental, your emotional, and your physical well-being. So I walk the walk and talk the talk, and I embed a lot of physical fitness because that's what keeps me resourceful. I talk about the wheel of service. If you think you're in the center of this wheel and the spokes are family, friends, community, colleagues, clients, customers.
What a great metaphor of what you do for physical fitness. I love it.
And church groups, elder care, whatever.
Mhm.
And if you're not showing up in vertical, the whole wheel wobbles. So, and I have fun with it. I turned 62 last October, so I went out and rode 62 miles, and I wrote about it.
Wow.
And every mile I thought about a year in my life. And I was thinking on the ride down, miles 20 through 30 were rollicking. And,
Yep.
So every mile represented a year in my life. And God willing, when I turn 63 in October, I'll go out and ride 63 miles.
Do you do that straight or
Yeah.
you can?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
And you get in that zone, don't you?
Wow.
Where you feel like you can go forever once you hit that certain
Yeah,
groove.
So it not only makes me feel good and helps me show up, but I get to create moments with my daughters. I have a 25-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old daughter. And I've run road
What are their
races.
names?
Oldest is Leah. The youngest is Sarah.
And your bride?
Carol. I've run road races with Leah. And as I run, I think I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I get to run this race with my daughter. My youngest is at Auburn University. She's coming home this weekend. She texted me this morning and said, "Hey, you want to go skiing on Saturday?"
Yeah.
If I'm not in shape, I
Yes.
can't do that.
Right,
So
right.
these are just more connections. But I'm modeling certain behavior, yes, intentionally. I'm going to correct myself. I'm modeling this behavior for them, saying, "Hey, this has worked for me, so I invite you to be curious."
I love that phrase. I invite you to be curious.
it
That's,
is
that is
great. Yeah,
that's
that
great
is.
wisdom there.
Well, I like it because it's not preachy. And when I
Mm-hmm.
do these training sessions, I will lay out what worked for me in a very high stress career. And I give them what worked for me, and I say, I invite you to be curious. You can try one, you can try them all, you can reject one, reject them all. This is what worked for me. See if it works for you. Because there's no Staples easy button. I'm not saying if you do this, all your problems will disappear. All I know is to work the 70-hour weeks, I needed the physical fitness thing, especially in the morning, because then nobody could take it from me. The day gets in the way.
I do the same thing
Yeah.
first thing in the morning. I do my 20 minutes of meditation in motion, Tai Chi, every single morning after I do my prayerful work.
Right.
And it just sets the tone for the whole day because God gave us an amazing temple to steward. And we need to take care of this. Joyce, I know you do the same thing.
Well, I was just invited to write an article. The Connecticut Bar Association has a magazine, CT Lawyer, and I was just invited to write an article on attorney wellness, just the general topic of attorney wellness, no specific prompt.
Right.
I just submitted the article, and it's basically about the asset. Your body is your asset. And what I talk about is newly minted lawyers are bombarded with offers all around finance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, life insurance, 401ks, mutual funds, all talking about dollars and cents. Nobody talks about the asset that produces the money that you need to protect from creditors. Well, creditors in real life are anxiety, depression, and addiction, and so why don't we protect the asset to keep those creditors at bay, and then everything else will follow.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
What an illustration.
Yeah. Beautiful.
It really is.
That's pretty much what I'm talking about. And interestingly, lawyers have what's known as the rules of professional conduct. If you have a license, you are duty-bound to follow them. One of the first rules is that a lawyer must represent clients competently. And competence is defined as the mental, emotional, and physical ability to do the work. So what I'm saying is right there in that rule, competence talks about the mental, emotional, and physical well-being is wellness.
Yeah.
It is.
So
Yeah.
we're actually duty-bound, and a lot of people just gloss over that.
Right.
But that applies to really any profession.
Yeah, it does.
It's Pilots are taken out of service if they hit a certain number of hours. Commercial truck drivers, surgeons, you think about those professions. Those aren't personality flaws. It's risk management.
Yes.
And that applies to a lot of professions.
Carl, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, well, let's show that book one more time, too, there. There's a lot of wisdom here today.
Wisdom collection.
But, Carl, if somebody wants to get in touch with you for coaching, I mean, I've learned so much just sitting with you, but I've had a chance, the privilege of calling you a friend and deepening a friendship. But if somebody wants to get in touch with you for some coaching, small group, large group, how do they do that?
It's right on my website, carlficks.com,
We'll have that link.
CARLFICKS.com.
Yeah.
Or email me at carl@carlficks.com.
You make it
easy.
real simple. But thank you so much for all you contribute to the world, Carl.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful.
You've been a great guest.
This has been What's Good.
It has. And thank you so much for tuning in to What's Good with John and Joyce. 30 minutes every week of hopefully inspirational, uplifting, and feel free to subscribe on YouTube. It's free, and share it with everybody you know who needs a 30-minute fix of what's good. Till next time, God bless.
Bye for now.
Hey, I heard you got engaged. Congratulations. Now it's time to book the DJ. And that's where we come in. I'm John Cadillac Seville with John Seville Entertainment, Wedding Wire, and the Knot 2026 Couples Choice Awards winner. You can call me directly if you like at 203-988-0658. We'll set up your free consultation. Or go to johncaddyman.com. That's 203-988-0658 or johncaddyman.com. We offer excellence, peace of mind, and a great time for all. John Seville Entertainment, a name you know and can trust.